The real bad juice cast.
Look at yourself, boy! Ha! Girl! Yes, girl!
No.
Mama's little girl!
Not a girl.
How'd you kill your mother?
Slowly.
Will this be the end of Norman Bates?
Oh, I've killed before. And now I'm going to have to do it again.
Or is it only the beginning? Psycho 4, The Beginning.
Last time, in chronological release order, so let's get to audiences. Okay, so audiences in the 80s. So they saw Psycho 2, they loved it, got great reviews, made money. They went and saw Psycho 3, that split the fan base, didn't make as much money, bombed. Then Universal was like, let's try a TV series. They did Bates Motel. Wow. Yeah, yikes. So, so man, fans at that time, for because it was released in '87. So for a couple of years, that was it. Bates Motel would be the last thing they would get. That would be the closure for the series for a while. Just think about that for a moment. So, luckily, they were able to book in the series thanks to Showtime. And they did Psycho 4 The Beginning, which came out in 1990. This would be the final performance of Norman Bates by Anthony Perkins. Sadly, he was dying of AIDS, and 2 years later would no longer be here. But I gotta say, Anthony Perkins was in his late 50s and stuff. Man looked good for his age. So, Psycho 4 is another sequel that sort of decanonizes Psycho 2 and 3. So it just takes place, after Psycho 1. Um,
I think in many instances, you're gonna have if you wanted a Psycho sequel, you had to decanonize Psycho 3 at the very least, because if you didn't, it really wouldn't make a lot of sense unless it's literally a Norman in prison movie, which they never made.
oh, I'm glad you brought that up, because I was actually going to bring up the original pitch for Psycho 4. Um, so yeah, Anthony Perkins and the screenwriter of Psycho 3 did pitch an idea for Psycho 4 that would have been Norman's house and motel would have got turned into a tourist attraction for horror weekends, and Norman escapes the mental institution with a mute patient, and the actor who was to play Norman Bates for the horror weekend quits, and Norman would have replaced that role. Basically, he would have played himself. Would have been a
That
black.
sounds that sounds almost as bad as the 1987 Bates Motel. I mean, that sounds really dumb.
It would have been a black comedy.
I know, but it's like, how far Psycho would have fallen had that been the thing. Now, one of the things to keep in mind, the 1990s, you ever feel like the 1990s was like well, I guess it really was, but it was in many respects the media capstone of literally the 20th century. I mean, that's when we saw the end of the Psycho franchise as we knew it, The last time with Anthony Perkins, the last time with a proper Psycho anything.
Right. So the plot synopsis of this is Norman Bates calls into a radio program, basically says that he's going to kill again, and the topic of the talk show is like murder, people who kill their mothers. So that so then we're able to have Norman Bates recall his childhood, and we're able to basically get a prequel and learn about Mother and how Norman became Norman. So I'll give my brief little spoiler-free recommendation thingy. um, I would say definitely check this out. I think this was really well put together for being made for cable, Showtime. Now, I have heard that this did get a limited theatrical release because I know when they released it on DVD, it was in widescreen, and usually made for cable movies don't get that treatment. But I've also heard that they just crop the top and the bottom, so I don't know which exactly is true. I couldn't really find evidence on either one, but anyways, so I think Perkins does great. I think Henry Thomas's young Norman Bates does a good job. Olivia Hussey is Norma Bates, does a fantastic job. The radio DJ, CCH Pounder, is an excellent actress, and she helps this movie. I think the cast is great. It's a great prequel. Um, yeah, it's a great bookend. Is it the most perfect film? No, no, it's not. It has a few little problems, but overall, it was a joy to watch. And if you've watched Psycho 2 and 3, you should check it out. And it's more prequel than a modern sequel. So the fact that it maybe ignores 2 and 3 isn't that big of a deal. So yeah, I say see it. Lots.
Well, this is an interesting film all around for a variety of reasons. It is indeed a prequel, but it serves as a legitimate sequel. But as Rage said, it's more prequel than sequel, meaning that it focuses more on Norman Bates's past versus his present. But his present does actually have does actually have an impact, which I thought was quite good. There was actually a good final ending to the actual series. Now, it doesn't necessarily feel like a made-for-TV movie. I actually have to say that I prefer this to Psycho the Third in many respects. I think it's one of those sequels that I don't really mind that it ignores Psycho 2 as well. It feels like it actually wraps it up. Because one of the biggest problems with the Psycho sequels is like Norman. It eventually beggars belief that Norman isn't, just straight up like shot at some point. Okay, it's like you're just gonna keep letting him go and let him stab people again because that makes perfect sense. Here, it's like it makes sense. The overall way it's shot, paced, and everything like that, it does feel like it's of theatrical quality. The acting is, of course, quite good as well. For those of you who've seen the Bates Motel series, this version of Young Mother is very different from the Norma Bates character in that show. For one, she's a brunette, if I'm not mistaken. For another, she acts a little more, well, a lot more evil, whereas Norma in the Bates Motel show was more just kind of an idiot, kind of a thick-headed type of person. So do I recommend it? Absolutely. You would think that by number 4, Psycho would be running on fumes, but you know, while Bates Motel 1987 was a particularly terrible TV film, that's because you had producers basically snorting whole snowdrifts of coke, whereas in this film, well, the 80s were over and they came down off of their cocaine highs. So yes, definitely check it out.
Yeah, I got to say the same thing with you guys. It's definitely, I agree. Watch this movie. Personally, I think that they did the best possible way that they could have done it all too. Um, Listeners who heard Psycho 3, where I said this is so hectic. You think I'm just like scrambling to remember plot points? No, that's how hectic the movie is. This is actually a return to the original format where I mean, let's face it, Psycho is more of a cerebral horror than it is like physical or visceral in any way, shape, and form. This is something where it's slow, it's methodical, it's build up. You have to think about things. They have to solve things. They have to get to the bottom of things. And yeah, it's like you would think that by the time they've reached number 4, where are we going to go from here? They did it fantastically. And yeah, you can. It's a shame because Psycho 2 was actually really, really good that you have to ignore that it happened. But it seems like every single one of these fucking movies, it's, yeah, forget about the last one. That one didn't happen. And I mean, it's kind of cool that we live in an age where we can do that now. Where if a sequel was so terrible, it's just like, oh, that was a fucking dream. It didn't happen. This on the other hand, they did. They took it a very logical step, and I love the back and forth. The back and forth was absolutely perfect. Where, um, Norman is calling up the radio station and he's describing his story, and then that snobby ass fucking doctor, was just getting put in his place left and right, and then it took him a minute to realize that it's Norman, and then the radio DJ, she was fantastic. I mean, she was really the star of this movie alongside Anthony Perkins. As far as the flashbacks go, um, when you jump around in time frames in a movie, you're almost like assuredly going to have like a lot of clusterfuckery, and you're going to have a lot of moments where it's like, okay, where am I now? Type of thing. And there's only two movies that I can think of that actually did it right, where they go back and forth between past and future, past and future, past and future. The first one that I can think of is obviously The Godfather Part 2, and this one. It did it really well. As far as going back to the past, um, the kid that they got to play Norman Bates did a fantastic job, and the mother, yeah, she was in Cat People. That's the only thing that I really notably remember her for,
Well, the kid
and
is
I
in
know she's been.
ET.
That's the only thing that I really remember her from. But all in all, it's the one thing that I really felt that they could have done without though is that they really tried to drive home the incest stuff. And I wasn't a big fan of that because you're kind of giving the audience too much. I mean, it would be one thing if it was implied but not acted upon. This, on the other hand, it was kind of in your face up to the point where it was like I was fucking uncomfortable. Like the part where, oh Norman, come and rub ice on me. You're just sitting there. You're like, what the fuck? You know? And then, oh, let's roll around each other. Oh, this is terrible. No wire hangers. They didn't have to do it to get the point across, but they felt that they had to. I have no idea why they felt they had to, because I mean, shit, it was right there, and anybody could have been like, "Yeah, those two are fucking bumping uglies," or people, "No, you're not." They could have left that more up to the audience's perception. It just that stuff genuinely made me feel like uncomfortable. Like nowadays, like I watch it, I skip through it, and it's not because it's boring. It's just because it's fucking creepy,
Gross.
you know. But as far as the ending of the movie goes, they wrapped it up fantastically. I loved it, and even the build. It was, well, I'm going to kill my wife and my cursed bloodline type of thing. And then she manages to talk him out of it. And you really get that sense that Norman's conquered his demons. And it's at this point, Norman is such a sympathetic character that he finally gets a happy ending. And I mean, Christ, he's what, fucking 40, 50 years old at this point? So all the shit that he's been through, it's about time that he had like a minute's chance to be happy. So, yeah, go see it. I recommend it.
All right. I guess now we'll go into spoilers. Actually, before we go into spoilers, I should point out that the writer of the first Psycho came back and wrote this one.
Robert Block.
Uh, well, Robert Bloch is the novel. Joseph Stefano is the writer of Psycho and Psycho 4.
Oh, the film writer. I thought you were talking about the book writer.
Right, film writer.
All right,
It's
let's
also,
hear it.
it's also from Mick Garris, who's done other movies like Pierce 4 and stuff, and Sleepwalkers, and yada yada yada. So the film opens up with a radio program on basically, you know, people who kill their mothers, and we're introduced to this one character describing his situation, and
The movie starts off with a guy describing what it was like to kill his mother, and then
right,
it's like they kind of allude that it was Norman, but it was like a slobby version of Norman talking about it. And then it's like, yeah, that kind of sounds like what happened over in Fairville.
Yeah,
Remember
but
that type
no,
of
I was
shit?
just asking. Was it his father he was living with, or his father-in-law? Because I know the guy was
It's
like,
it's pretty irrelevant, really. It's just some
well,
asshole calling in and
because
writing.
I just remember him mentioning like, I don't blame him for killing her. She was a real bitch.
Yeah, she was a bitch.
What was that character's name?
Who?
The killer guy at the beginning.
The guy in the beginning?
Yeah,
Um,
I don't know if they said it.
they never really said it. It was just some random asshole.
Yeah, that was
You know,
actually
and then
yeah, that was
because
actually
the whole yeah, because the whole point of it, the episode was like Fran, the DJ, was talking about matricide,
right.
and then they had Doctor Richmond in there, who was Norman's psychologist.
Hmm.
I mean, the one thing that you could touch upon is the fact that Norman called up and he was using the alias Ed, and you
Right,
know it meant Ed Gein.
right.
I mean, I thought that was pretty badass.
Yeah, you were saying like those moments were disturbing, and I was gonna say like, yeah, that's the point. That's I think part of what makes this
No,
movie.
no, they really shoved that in your face like hardcore.
I know it's disturbing.
Like you were expecting some fucking Skinamax shit to start on that, like that, like just the way they dragged on it, because that's what it was. It was like it wasn't even like a fucking oh, it was like oh, because it was just like, and the thing is, you don't even like gasp once, because by the time you're done gasping, like it's still going on, and you have to like cry a couple of times before it's over, because it's that fucking disturbing. It's just they hung on that shit for so long that you're just like, what the fuck am I watching here?
Well, there's a scene where he like pops a boner and leaves, and then the tickling
Yeah,
scene.
and then she throws him in the closet and says,
Yeah.
"Cut your thing off," and all this. Jesus Christ! It was just, it was so unnecessary. They could have just shown how domineering she was and how she fucking ran his life and shit, and how she controlled him and shit. It's just all that incestual shit. It was like, not only is it like a fucking disturbing enough topic, and you know, when you watch the Amityville Horror 2 and they have that incest thing, you can look at that shit and be like, all right, that's fucking disgusting, and it's also fucking hilarious because they're so stupid and
Wow.
their acting sucks, and it's like in Amityville Horror 2, you know, he comes in, you're gonna be the model, and I'm gonna be the photographer.
Wait a
Take your
second.
clothes off.
I just realized
What?
something. Mike
What?
Gareth directed Psycho 4, and he also directed Sleepwalkers, which
Yeah.
is about a son, mother, incest, cat creature things. And there's
Yeah,
plenty of
and you know what? It was the same mother too.
yeah, and there's plenty of makeout scenes and bumping ugly scenes in that movie.
Yeah, I can't fucking deal with
No,
that.
that's the actress that played the Borg Queen. That's a different actress.
I thought it was the same fucking person. She looked and sounded. But
I know. They look similar, but
what?
it was someone else.
I completely forgot what the fuck I was saying.
You're talking about
Completely
the
forgot.
incest of Amityville Horror 2.
Oh yeah, the fucking Amityville Horror too. He's like, take your shirt off. You're the most beautiful girl in the world. And then he sits down and gives her panties. She's like, these are my panties. And he's like, I took the laundry. You know, it's like fucking what? But meanwhile, it's like this, where it's like, ugh, put ice on me, Norman.
I love your Norma voice. That's great.
Ice, ice, baby.
You
Pum,
just
pum, pum.
get back here.
Put ice on me, Norman.
Spilling mother's lily water, or the fuck it was called.
Get the fuck. Yeah, I'm gonna make my special iced tea.
Yeah, that was Elliot from E.T.
Yeah, fuck my life.
Going home.
He did a great job, but I think Perkins definitely gave him some good pointers.
Yeah, no,
Going home.
seriously, the kid that played Norman did a fantastic job. He reminded me a lot of Anthony Perkins, and Anthony Perkins, of course, did a bang up job. And then Fran, the DJ, she was wonderful in her role as well. This is a good movie. It really was, and I don't have a whole lot of complaints to make about it. It's just, goddamn,
Yeah,
Whoa.
uh,
That way, right.
it's
oh,
definitely.
that boy is right.
I'd say out of the sequels, Psycho 4 definitely is the creepiest compared to 2 and 3.
Yeah,
Or
because I mean, Al Pacino would be sitting in the movie theater watching this, going, "Yo, you're fucked up."
see, you say the incest stuff is bad when it is, but to me, it's the death scene is the one that just sends shivers on my spines.
Oh, when he's
Uh,
puking all over the fucking place. By the end of this movie, like, you never had a chance to get to know Norma in any of the movies to establish like the only person that feels anything for Norma is Norman.
hmm.
And watching this movie, you actually get to see Norma in action. And you know, in the Bates Motel AMC series, Norma's a fucking dumb hoe
Hey,
because it's pretty. She is. She's a dumb hoe. Stupid shit that she does, and all the trouble that she got people in throughout that whole fucking series. But you know what? That is AMC TV series for you. Someone's always got to fucking bang around and cause trouble, and we'll get into that when we do that fucking series. But this Norma, there is no way in hell that you could ever fucking feel bad for her. There's zero, no sympathy whatsoever for this fucking woman, none. Like you when she died, you're
actually,
like good.
yeah. I don't know. The death scene, I just found it just, I don't know.
I
Like,
know it was disturbing because of the way
yeah.
that it was acted out. But again, the stepfather was a piece of shit, and the mother was a horrible whore. Horrible.
They're just misunderstood.
Yeah. Aren't we all just a little mad?
I should have
Yeah.
killed you in my womb.
Ugh, you bad boy. Get out of here, you fucking. Ugh.
She should have won. See, it really sucks. It's how some of these actors and actresses don't get nominated for horror because I think Olivia should have been nominated as Norma.
Perkins, this was when his AIDS was in full swing too, so
Right.
he did really good going along with them with what he did. Uh, yeah, that was it. Chet was the stepfather's name, and then like Norma would like actually kind of push him to beat the shit out of Norman,
Right.
you know. And then they started doing the whole thing, and after that, after she was finally dead because she was such a rotten human being, you know, this is when like Doctor Richmond like finally realizes who Ed is and tries to get him to trace the call because he said he was going to kill his wife. And Doctor Richmond, he was another scumbag. You know, it's
Right.
not like he was in it. That's the other thing too, is because in Psycho 2, the Robert Loggia, like he played his part so well, and the character was actually decent. You got the impression that this was a doctor who really wanted to help Norman,
Right.
and you can tell that this guy was no fucking Doctor Loomis. You know, this guy was just in it because, oh, I'm going to sell my next book off this asshole.
I
You
like
know,
that it was the original Doctor. That was a cool touch.
it was, it really was.
Like
It's just,
like it being the detective in the first Exorcist movie, played by a different actor, but uh he's in the third movie too, and they do. But it's cool when sequels can do connective tissue like that, and make it
yeah,
work.
there wasn't any limbs to connect shit to though. You know, so after that horrible woman is fucking dead, that monster.
That's when Norman obviously starts to crack, and he decides he can't live without his mother. So then he essentially steals her from the funeral home, which that part of the movie was a little weird. I don't know, like I just don't know. It just seemed a little far fetched of how he was able to just kind of go in there and like grab her. You think you have to like I don't know grave rob or something, but whatever.
Yeah, I'd actually say that Bates Motel did it slightly better, but still, no one noticed that somebody got dug up.
Yeah, he just put books in there. I think.
Yeah, I kind of feel I feel the same way, but at the same time, it makes perfect sense. Because I mean, yeah, it does follow the original plot line where it
Mhm.
says that, oh yeah, he weighted the coffin down, but he walked in, it was an open casket, and then like I don't know, wouldn't any like maybe it was a small town and they didn't give a
Right.
shit, but it's just like it would have been like a little bit odd to me if I was a mortician. It was like, didn't I leave that open? You know?
True. True. It's one of those things where I think the movie was. made well enough where I can look past it, but it was still like the writer was, I don't know,
Well, you know,
whatever.
the best way that I can truly sum up this movie personally is that this was a good movie that could have been a great movie. And the reason why I say that is because it was very true to the original plot line of how Psycho was supposed to play out. And granted, you know, it totally wiped out 2 and 3. They never happened apparently, which is fine. It can go either way.
Right.
And there wasn't any real plot holes that I could notice as far as the consistencies could go.
I
But
still
it's
think
just
it was great though. I mean,
well, the thing that kept it from being great for me was the fact that it's just that they kept fucking ramming the incest angle down your throat throughout the whole movie.
right.
It got uncomfortable for me. And it's like I understand the notion that Norman was totally devoted to his mother and then he had to kill her and all this shit, but it's just they kept pushing it. And then not only were they constantly pushing it, but it hung on it forever. It's like not enough that excuse me. The the best scene that drives this point home was that fucking summertime scene where it starts off with her, oh, my mother was sweating like a wilted flower and all this shit. Or whatever. I know I got the line wrong. But it's, oh, Norman, come in here and pour vanilla all over me. And, you're watching that and you're like, what? And then to make matters worse, he goes in and he starts dripping the vanilla on. And then oh, Norman, that feels so good. And what? And then yeah, I know.
Look,
It's like
I'm just
you don't know
saying,
you
man,
don't know whether you want to laugh or recoil and revolt.
can you
And then
can we just get you
it,
some
it
time to narrate the entire film for us? Because that would be amazing.
you mean
The
me?
Norman persisted.
Yes, yes. Oh my god.
In front of the tunnel. Anyway, let's move on, shall
He's
we?
dripping the vanilla extract shit all over her. And then she rolls over and then he starts fucking feeling up her feet. So now we got incest and foot fetishes. And
Now, are we
then
sure that's vanilla and
and
not
then the
something
shit
else?
gets knocked over. And then, oh, you naughty boy, you spilled the vanilla extract all over. And then she gets up and fucking tackles him and tickles him and shit and climbs on top of him. What mother does this?
Well,
And
yeah.
not only is she like climbing on top of him, oh, you naughty, naughty boy. Then they start rolling all over the floor on top of each other. What the fuck? And then not only are they rolling on top, then he's on top, and then she's smiling at him, and then he's smiling at her, and then she's smiling at him, and then he smiles back at her and starts breathing heavy, and then her face makes the same face that I fucking made throughout this entire scene. Oh, you naughty, wicked boy! And then she fucking grabs him and starts smearing fucking makeup all over him. You filthy whore. And then throws a dress on him. And then
Mhm.
throws him into the closet. You're going to go wee wee in that bucket. You're going to drink the water from the bucket and then you have to go wee wee. And then you're going to forget that you have that naughty thing. And then you're going to squat. And then look at you, girl. That's all you are.
No,
You're
mother,
a
no.
girl.
No, mother, no. Yeah,
And then she called him her name, Norma,
yeah.
and then throws him in the closet like, let me out of the fucking closet. Don't talk to me until you've forgotten that you have a dick.
Oh,
Yeah.
That right there, it just sums it up. It's like, motherfucker, we get it.
motherfucker.
Why did we have, oh God, that was no pun intended. Why did
Also,
this have to go on for 10 fucking minutes?
Yeah,
10 fucking minutes of this.
I
Well,
can definitely
same
agree with
director,
that.
Sleepwalkers, like I said before.
You got to remember though, this was also made for the Showtime network, and I think they were trying to show.
This is Showtime. We want this movie to be more titillating, but it's about a mother and son. Make it work.
Well, no, but I don't necessarily mean that, but I know you're joking. But the thing is, I think they were trying to show it's like we're going to be edgy. We are the real cable network. You wouldn't get this on HBO now, would you?
Look,
it was
I don't give a fuck. I don't give a frog's fat ass who fucking made this. That was so fucking unnecessary. I mean, we got it already because the only people that would see this fucking movie are people that are fans of the franchise. It's not like a fucking guy is gonna like bring a girl home and be like, "Oh damn, I'm really gonna get her good. I'm gonna put on Psycho 4." You know, the fucking fans would be watching this, so they already get the goddamn idea. And you know, the thing is like this is a perfect example of how things are so much more better when things are implied. I mean, you could have just been like, "Oh, I'm hot, pour the wax on me," you know, or you know, I'm just waiting for it puts the vanilla extract in the bucket, or else it gets the hose again.
I would
Shit like
say
that.
like, oh well, then maybe watch this on TV. But you see, I saw this on like USA. Like I said, it was like the first Psycho movie I actually watched, and they didn't really cut out much of
Oh,
that. So
that's even worse. You can't have that throat getting cut, but holy shit, will we put implied incest?
yeah.
I don't know if it's implied now, but
So moving on the plot.
But it's just that's to me that's the only thing that kept this movie from being a great movie because everything else about it, the pacing was fantastic. Norman Bates, not Norman Bates, but Anthony Perkins, and that's the sad thing about Anthony Perkins. Most people know him as Norman Bates, and that's it. Fuck the rest of it. He was phenomenal, even though he was sick.
We also review fan edits here, so maybe we can get somebody to make a fan edit of Psycho for the
Yeah,
non
if you're
heavily implied
yeah,
incest version.
yeah, Agent Sam, if you're listening in, get to work on this shit. Just cut the incest out, and you'll have a fucking Oscar-worthy movie right there. But you know, Norman Bates was wonderful in his role, despite the fact that he was sick. And when the mother wasn't acting like creepier than usual, she was kind of passable. And that guy that she shacked up with was like one of the worst scumbags in cinema. And
Hey,
but
he
I
was just
love
trying
the
to teach
plot.
Norman how to box. That's all.
Oh God, when he kept beating the shit out of him. That's it, but I love the plot line between him calling up the radio station. And I
Hmm.
mean the psychiatrist was so fucking stupid. He's like, "I've been putting two and two together and I figured out that Ed is Norman Bates because I treated him." Well, there's no fucking arithmetic to this dickhead. It's fucking you would know the idea of it. It was just that to
Right.
me was really really good.
So about after um, Norman gets his dead mother and stuffs her. We go back to the present, right? Because unless I'm missing something, we're wrapping up to the end where he says that he's gonna kill his wife.
Essentially what's going on here is just that it's switching back and forth showing how Norman got fucked up and then they're juggling with the aspect of Norman wanting to kill his wife because she lied about being on the pill because he did not want to have kids whatsoever. Now
Hmm.
an important plot point here is that she was a nurse at the mental institute and
Right.
she fell in love with Norman. And the whole you know thing was is that she fell in love with Norman, knew that there was a good person inside of him, and he did not want to have kids. He wanted the fucking Bates bloodline to end with him, and that be the end of it.
Right.
And all this happened on his birthday, and he found out, like behind her back, that she was not taking pills behind his back, and that she got pregnant. So that's why he wanted to kill her. And now the radio host, it's like she's halfway trying to keep him on the air to save his wife, and also she's trying to keep him on the air because um, they basically kind of set Norman off going into all these details and having the show go on. So, and I mean, they even struck on that too, where Norman was like, "Well, if I hang up the phone, that's the end of your show."
Right. Which was a haunting scene.
Very.
It's a little sad too because she doesn't really get an update, from then on out.
Yeah, as soon as they stopped with that shit, that was literally the end of the Fran show.
Yeah. Um, and then that's when he hangs up and he uh, basically tells Connie, his wife, to meet him at the house.
At the old house.
Yep. In which Norman is, going to kill her, but pretty
What did you
much
think of those flashbacks?
the flashbacks when the house is burning down.
Yep.
I personally thought they were a little cheesy, but at the same time, the idea was right of having him face his past. I also think there was a missed opportunity. They should have had a a Janet Leigh lookalike maybe show up or something. I mean, they've been referencing the shower scene in all the fucking sequels. I know they did at the beginning and the blood going in the sink, but I mean they had opportunity to have either Janet Leigh or lookalike appear, but they didn't. Oh,
Can we delve into the stupid ass fucking women that Norman killed in the flashbacks?
you mean that the first woman that was like a copy of PJ Soul's character in Halloween?
She wasn't even a copy of PJ Soul's character. She was like fucking a horror version of Peggy Sue. You know, like I just remember her wearing a shirt that looks like the shit that you put in a fucking picnic basket, and she had the pigtails. And then it like the dialogue was just kind of draggy. You know, it just oh well, let's sleep together. He's like, oh, I don't really know about that. Well, let's sleep together. It's like all these women are foisting themselves on this poor bastard.
I know Norman Bates is like a total ladies' man.
It's
Actually trying to show some fucking class, you know? And I mean, it's like perfect candidate for the fucking Me Too movement.
what I find kind of funny though is like the whole idea of Norman Bates being a ladies' man. He never acts it. He never does anything to do it. It's just like women just were like throw themselves at him for some unreason. And it was even worse in Bates Motel, uh, where it's like, really, you're gonna go after that guy?
Is it really a stretch though? There's been several stories of women and like serial killers and stuff, as
You
well
know,
as some men.
okay, I can accept that. However, in cinema, sometimes you need to. Okay, yeah, it can happen in real life, but in cinema, it just looks lazy. Let me put it that way. It's just like, and then he's a ladies' man, and they throw themselves at him. It's just like, I'm not buying that. Just saying, at least do something to make him look somewhat, desirable.
So, Lots, you were saying to me when we were talking about this film that you actually liked the flashbacks at the end.
I found them to be of adequate quality. I mean, I want to say like when I say like, you got to be careful. It's not like I love it beyond imagining. It's like it worked. Let's
I
put it that
knew
way.
it. Right.
Well, one other thing that I wanted to add too is just like those women were like borderline insulting as to how stupid they were. Like the Peggy Sue, it was like, "Oh, my mother's upstairs." She's like, "Okay, let's go into the house and do it." But my mother's upstairs. She's tossing and turning. She's like, "Good. What better time to have sex than tossing and turning?" What?
I think
And
whoever was writing that needed to go
they had
to
no idea. They were fucking drunk.
either that or they really really needed to
Well,
get
that would
the
be
hell out to.
Joseph Stefano who wrote Psycho, the movie, not the book.
And he needs to head out to Las Vegas and get some. Just saying.
If I remember correctly, you know what? I do remember correctly because I was appalled by how fucking dumb this girl was. He's carrying on about like his mother being like sick and violent and all this shit. So she wants to sleep with him in the house. Never mind, there's a fully functional motel right there. Um, then he disappears. So she goes into the fucking house. The first place that she goes is into the mother's bed, Mother Bates's bedroom, and starts tickling her feet. She starts tickling the corpse's feet, and then goes up, and it's like, wait, I don't want. It's like I want to get caught.
Clearly,
It's like
she didn't even graduate the second grade.
I think that's an
you
insult to
didn't
all
even
people
pass the
who.
fucking kindergarten entrance examination.
Yeah.
And speaking of kindergarten, what a fucking cougar that second one.
Oh
She was like
yeah,
fucking four times Norman's age, and they're like in the car and shit, and then he strangles her.
yeah. I'm pretty sure that would be probably illegal. I don't know how old Norman was, but still, ew.
And Bates Motel would kind of have a character like that towards the end of season one.
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
Bates Motel. Don't even get me started on that. How the fuck do we go from a story inspired by Ed Gein to telling a story of a woman who moves into a house, gets raped by the previous owner while being handcuffed to the kitchen table, and then they discover a sex ring which is operated by the Russian mafia, who also has a fucking pot farm growing on the outskirts of the town, which happens to fund everything. What the fuck?
I thought that was
This
kind
is
of
really
neat.
crazy now.
Would you say it was really psycho? Bum bum bum.
Haha. No.
How
It's just,
could you?
but you see, it's stupid things like that that kept the movie from being a great movie to me. It's a good movie, not a great movie. If it didn't have
Right.
this dumbass shit, it would have been great to me. When they do the flashback sequences, yeah, they're kind of cheesy, but I get the message about Norman overcoming his past. I found the part in the basement though pretty touching though, when he's sitting there, he's pleading his case, and at this point, you almost kind of side with Norman because, I mean, that's pretty fucked up, to do that behind someone's back. Like, yeah, I'll just stop taking my medication and force his child on him. Oh, and by the way, I'm not getting an abortion, type of thing. It's like, what choice did Norman really have? Because that to me is just a horrible thing to do to a person.
Right.
But he's sitting there pleading his case, and then she's explaining, your mother is dead. This is you, and it's like, your mother fucked you up, but I love you, and our child will love you, and you love me, and this child is the both of us. So it was a very touching scene, in spite of itself.
And yeah, and scenes like that do make up for the cornier stuff.
That's not corn, man. That's fucking maize.
um. So then Norman realizes that the only way he's ever gonna get true closure is if we kind of skipped past it, but we forgot to mention the fact that he lights the house on fire to get closure, and then that's when he starts seeing visions of what happened previously in Psycho 4 and not Psycho 1. But anyways, so then the film kind of wraps up
The
in a
last thing I want to remark, that the end with the rocking chair rocking again.
yeah.
Fuck you. Let it go.
I like
Like,
that.
Yeah, I
and
kind
then
of
you hear bum 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 bum, and then all of a sudden you hear "Wah," in the background. I could deal with the baby crying, but to me, the rocking chair at the end. Oh, could she be coming back? Come on.
well, yeah, I mean for Bates Motel 87. No, I'm just kidding. So the rocking chair thing, I kind of agree with you on because it's the same thing at the end of Psycho 3 when he pulls out his mother's hand. I was just like, really? Like, can't we just have kind of like at the end of Psycho 3? Can we just have a happy ending where he'll be locked up, but he knows he's free? Have a happy ending in Psycho 4 where he's fully defeated his demons? I don't know.
Oh yeah, when he pulls the hand out of his ass in the third one, that was just weird. And it's I guess the best way that I could put it is that it's kind of like a reoccurring theme with this movie, and it's like, I know I'm beating a dead horse here, but it's things like this that keep like, it's a good movie, but it could have been great. It didn't need this shit. It's just, it's to me, it's unnecessary. You didn't have to pull the hand out of the ass in the third one, and we didn't have to do the rocking chair. The movie stands on its own. The story is good. The acting is great. But it's just,
Yeah.
it's almost like a Family Guy joke where you laugh at it the first 2 minutes, and then the joke is still going on for 5 minutes, and you're kind of like, okay, can we move on now?
I think the rocking chair was supposed to signify that even though he burned the place down, he would always have the memory. Like it's always kind of still there.
I felt the rocking chair signified, well, it even said, Norman, I'm down here. Just let it go.
Well, I actually thought that's what was happening. Is that he was leaving that behind. You know.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. Is he was supposed to leave it fucking behind, but then the second that it shows the rocking chair moving on its own, this is not the Amityville horror.
Psycho 5, the ghost of Norma Bates.
I kind of I kind of just accepted it as like maybe that was in his head. It was the last vestige of Norma
It was
crying to be.
it was just a zinger for the audience. Some little spooky thing to throw in before the credits, you know.
I'm trying to
But,
be art college. God damn it!
but you see, the thing is like the notion of Norman leaving everything behind was the door closing. We're closing the door on
Right.
this. We're closing the door on Norman's past. That's what they meant by closing the fucking cellar door, so literally. But having the rocking chair move on its own, it's just to me, it was one of those. It's a typical fucking thing that they do at the end of like so many horror movies. That it's like, oh, does this mean that there could be a sequel? Does this mean it's going to be coming back? It's like the end of Christine when you see like the metal move a little bit after they've turned the car into the cube.
Hey, I like that ending.
Or, but what I mean is, it's just it's trying to make the audience fucking, well, it doesn't mean anything. It's just it means it's the end of the movie.
Right.
But
Yeah.
if it's
It's just.
viable to make a sequel, it's
Hmm.
like, oh, we dropped a little hint that we could, we left the door open by
Psycho
closing the
baby.
door. Yeah, why not? Yeah, make Psycho 5, have it be Norman's daughter or some
Psycho 5, baby's day out.
nonsense.
Well, I like
Psycho
to have.
5 EX.
Psycho 5, look who's talking.
I actually kind of like the idea, and this will probably cause both of you a great deal of ire, but I'm going to say it anyway.
It's
What if Bates Motel?
I hate when movies do things like that where they try to leave shit open like that.
Poltergeist 3 has a worse ending than Psycho 4, though.
I think all of it's just unnecessary, and I mean
Yeah.
it just it sums up so many fucking so many movies can be summed up this way. It's unnecessary, and I mean that's kind of like that to me is a thing that haunts Psycho 4. It's just there's a lot of things that were so unnecessary. It's just lay it out there. Don't drag it on. Don't keep it going. But
Yeah,
for some
but
reason,
I've seen Bates Motel 87, and so all I can do is praise Psycho 4. I know it was made, because especially that it was made for cable, I just look at it on how good it is more than the negatives. It could have been so much
oh,
worse.
don't even get me started on Bates 87. My mother heard me trashing that fucking movie when we recorded it. So what's the first thing that she did? She watched it.
Awesome.
And she's like, "Oh my god, this is horrible." And I'm like, "You heard me talk about how bad it was."
Good.
Yes.
I think everyone should have to watch that because
It was
you should
particularly
know
terrible.
how low it can really go.
No,
I
don't,
think
because you know what? That should qualify as child abuse.
Uh, your
I think
punishment, Bates Motel 87, on repeat.
the
No.
Bates Motel 87. But speaking of Bates Motel, I gotta say, I got a fan theory that'll probably make everyone angry. Bates Motel, the modern series, is a sequel to Psycho 4. Okay, just hear me out. Just hear me out. Okay.
Okay.
So, uh, Norman Bates in that movie, in that show, is the son of the Anthony Perkins Norman Bates. Now, where does Nora Bates come from? Well, the woman who he's married to goes crazy and thinks she is Norma and changes her name. Boom, there you go. It could work.
You know what I think? I think you're drunk.
About that.
So overall, on the Psycho series, I definitely recommend well, not 87 Bates Motel, but the first four Psycho movies. Maybe the remake if you're morbidly curious on watching the same movie again, but really don't bother. But if you want to, I'm not going to stop you. And the TV show, which we'll get into later on. But for now, I think for being, you know, Alfred Hitchcock Psycho and three sequels, Second one is like is practically perfect, just as good as the first movie. The third one is so batshit insane that you're either gonna love it for being batshit insane, or you're just gonna be like, nope, too weird for me. So it's up to you on that one. And then Psycho 4, it does a pretty good job of trying to honor the original and telling the origin story. But it ain't no Psycho 2, but it's still good. It's just not great.
Damn.
Right?
Lots, what do you think of the series?
As for me, all the Psycho sequels were 100% unnecessary. There was no. I don't think anyone really even wanted a Psycho 2, 3, and especially 4. But I gotta say, you know, Psycho 4 is far better than you would possibly. When you hear Psycho 4, it's like they made a fourth one, and you automatically assume it's gonna be something that's pretty crap. But in all reality, it's surprisingly good. Psycho 4 suffers from an early 90s problem. Each Psycho movie outside of the first one suffers from the problems of whatever decade they come in. And Psycho 4 suffers from the early 90s problem of it's more serious, but it still has some incongruous, cheesy moments. Sort of like, Batman is completely different from Psycho, but it's a good example. You compare like Batman Returns. It's a really dark movie, but it has a lot of really incongruously goofy moments to it as well. In the end, the Psycho series actually works better than you'd think. Uh, Compared to other more well-known horror franchises, it actually was able to take a fairly basic concept of a psycho, and they were somehow able to spread it out to 4 movies without it becoming either repetitive or utter crap.
Well, you always say that like they shouldn't make horror sequels in general. So I don't know. Would you say that at least this is better than I guess what you would assume most horror sequels would be? 'Cause I think there's at least a spark of creativity in 2, 3, and 4.
There is, but that's what I was saying. Like, it's better than your average horror sequel.
Right.
This is better than your average horror franchise. Uh, they did the very best they could do, and for such a simple one and done concept.
Most of the credit has to go to Anthony Perkins, who acts the shit out of Norman Bates.
That's true. Even the stories are of adequate quality as well. I think if the stories were, an actor cannot carry a film on their own. You can have the best actor in the world, but the shittest movie in the world, and it wouldn't make a difference. So it seems that the people who actually were behind the Psycho sequels actually cared enough to hire real writers and real directors, and these are actually real films. I guess the best thing to compare is compare Psycho 4 to Halloween 4, Friday the 13th 4, and Nightmare on Elm Street 4. Compare that to those films, and you'll see that it's not even in the same category.
I was gonna say you're asking the tough questions because I really like Friday 13th Part 4, Nightmare on Elm Street 4, and Halloween 4 is alright. But yeah, I get what you're saying.
Halloween 4 was a piece of fucking dog shit.
There was another 4 you said, but I get what you're saying, Lots. It's hard to. The more sequels you write, the more difficult it is to keep up some level of consistency and quality.
Of course.
That's why usually when they do a bunch of horror sequels, they end up going into comedy or something like that.
Exactly, and they didn't actually do that with this particular franchise. I think the biggest thing to point out, though, the most important thing to point out, is that they didn't just keep making the same movie over and over again.
Right.
And Psycho is such a simple concept of you got a psycho and he does psycho things. And the fact that they were able to keep that going and not have it become a comedy or a farce, it's pretty impressive all around, really.
One last point I want to make before I get to Wolfman. Um, Norman Bates in the first movie, I would not say is sympathetic at all. He's just a loony guy in the back, and then at the end you're shocked that he's dressing as his mother kind of thing. You don't really feel anything much, not really. So then the second one, you get a chance because he's able to grow as a character, and you're able to understand more of the personality problem he had in the 22 years. You're able to connect with him more, and then going into Psycho 3, he's still able to be sympathetic, even though he's kind of slashing people. He's battling his inner demon in his head, and then Psycho 4. So that's an interesting thing that the sequels were able to do. And I think that's partly why they were so fascinating to watch, because of the fact that they were smart enough to able to explore it and just not like, oh, motel's open again, slash, slash, slash. Originally, it would have been a copycat kill or something, anyways. So I'm glad they didn't go that angle. But Wolfman,
Psycho as a series, it's definitely one of the more well done. I mean, when it comes to horror movies, especially horror movies of these types, Psycho has always been like kind of like the cleaner version of things when it comes to, like horror tropes like sex, violence, and stuff. Psycho's always been like more of a cerebral type of horror as opposed to a visual type of horror or an auditory type of horror. Where I think Psycho excels, is its storytelling. And I agree with a shit ton of what you guys said. It's the fact that they were able to keep the consistency as sequels go. And as it goes by, it's going to get harder and harder, and having to think up new things without going off the beaten path. It's pretty damn good how they were able to keep things going.
right?
I'm not sure if I remember correctly. I might have not recommended Psycho 3. I went and I rewatched it again recently, and I want to change it to that I would recommend it just because it was passable and it's kind of got like a charm to it. And it has aged pretty well as far as horror movies from the 80s go. So, yeah, Psycho 1, if you have not seen the original, yeah, definitely go see it. It's a masterpiece of horror and cinema in and of itself. The remake of Psycho, I still don't recommend it just because you've already seen it. What's the point of seeing it again? And Vince Vaughn just is not able to pull off Norman Bates the way that Anthony Perkins did. He made that role its own.
Just watch the clips on YouTube.
Just stay the fuck away from it by
That
all
too.
means.
I'm relatively sure that
Psycho 2.
you and Sam were pretty glowing on Psycho 3.
Did I what?
I said you and Sam were, and well as me, stuff. We were all kind of glowing about
Cut
Psycho
out,
3.
damn it.
I said we were all pretty much.
I was glowing about
Yeah. So
Psycho 2. It's like as good of a sequel as you could possibly ask for. I mean, like it's obviously not on par movie wise, but it's like Godfather 1 and then Godfather 2 in many ways was just as good, if not better. This is the same way with Psycho 2. It's just as good as the original, if not better. It was very, very faithful. I love the throwback to the originals with the camera angles and such. The story
Right.
was so competent, and it was one of those very, very, very rare movies where you can go back, watch it, enjoy it just as much as you did the first time. And then when it's over, you could actually sit. And if you watched it with other people, you could debate so many things about the movie. Like, if nobody bothered fucking with Norman, would Norman have been fine? I'm of the impression that even if Lila Loomis and Mary Loomis left him alone like they should have, and Emma Spool had started up her bullshit, he at the very least had Dr. Raymond to sort things out for him. I think Norman would have been fine. But that's the beauty in it, is that there's so many people like, nope, he would have gotten back. No, I think Norman would have been fine. But it's just like that's the beauty of it, is that you can go back and have debates about it. Debates, that's great.
Master debates.
But and then Psycho 3, I would recommend that because it's got a charm to it. And even though it's not as good as the originals, you could tell that they were having script problems because the story was so inconsistent with a lot of things, and that it just seemed like they took a little bit from this draft and a little bit from that draft, and then they melded it together. It's still good in quite a few ways. And then Psycho 4, It was a very well done story, and it's just if they didn't hang on those moments that I had mentioned before, it would have been really, really good. It's just they had to ram it down your throat. Yeah, we got it. That
Being
Norma Bates is
shocking,
fucked up.
being shocking for the
It,
sake
it,
of being shocking.
but there's a difference between shocking and genuinely uncomfortable. These things were not shocking to me.
It
You
was
know, it's
icky.
like the sympathy for Norman Bates had already been established. If you had watched the original movies, you would have already felt sorry for the poor bastard. You
Right.
really would have. So it's like they didn't have to drive this home. We already felt bad for Norman. And we already knew that Norma fucked him up. And we already knew that Norman did not have a good childhood. And that, you know, he was bound to turn into this because he was a product of his environment. It's just they hung on it and they hung on it and they wouldn't let it go. And it's just to me, I recommend the movie, but scenes like that, you know, made it a good movie, not a great movie. And as a series in and of itself, I'd recommend sitting down and at least watching all four of these movies at least once. Because I mean, hell, you don't find storytelling that good anymore. You don't find characters that good anymore. And a big reason behind why it was so good is because Anthony Perkins was that damn good of an actor. As far as the Bates Motel pilot thing goes, stay as far away from that as possible. Don't watch it. It was terrible. It was awful. It felt like a bad Tales from the Crypt episode.
Oh
And
God.
I don't
Yeah.
even want the acting was horrible. The story was terrible. It was shitty, and you could tell exactly what they were going for. That they wanted to make this a TV series,
A
like how
family
they did
show.
Friday the 13th. The series. They're not even a family show. They wanted to make it like how Friday the 13th the series was, where in Friday the 13th the series it was an antique shop, and each item in the antique shop has a story, and you buy it, you go home, and it was like Needful Things, the Stephen King book, you know, and it's
Right.
just oh come in, you never know what's behind the door. So it's like wait a minute, so every single fucking room in that motel is haunted, you know, or some shit like
Uh,
that. It's just like there will always be a room available. Get the fuck out of my face with that shit.
just remember,
But
Suicide Ghost. Uh,
that was terrible. When they were sitting there talking, I was born in so and then I committed suicide in so and so. But it was a room full of 12 people. I was expecting all 12 of them to give their date of birth and date of death.
it was a.
And I killed myself in
Uh,
so and so.
it's
I think
also
they did
it's
do all
also a
12.
fucked up message because when a lot of people are about to kill themselves, some of them want someone to just come in and stop them the last minute. So the fact that they create this, fantasy that these ghosts will save you if you try to do it is just. It actually turns out to be more wrong than how positive they're trying to be with their little ghost prevention crap message.
Message.
Ugh. Ugh. Anyways, let's wrap this up.
Yes.
So yeah, I'd check out the Psycho Legacy. I think we've said throughout all these podcasts
Everything
we've
that there is
done.
to be said about it.
Yeah. Um. So yeah, this was fun.
I give the Psycho series 5 ripped off shower curtains.
5 stabs to oh man, to Marion Crane now.
I give it 4 thrown ashtrays.
I give it.
I swear to God, that to me was the highlight of Psycho 3. Do you think I'm stupid, Duke? Even if I gave you money, you would still tell on Mother, and no one must ever know what she's done.
Watch that guitar.
Oh, wait. The perfect rating. I give it 10. Watch the guitar.
I give it 10. You'll burn in hell for this. Out of 10. I don't know. 10 Hail
You
Marys?
give it 10 what?
You'll burn in hell for this. The Nun?
I give it 4. There is no gods.
Oh my god.
All right, seriously. In spite of all that shit, please, anybody listening to this, go see Psycho. They're wonderful movies.
Yeah, I thought they were all entertaining, and I had a lot of fun rewatching them and discussing them with my buds. This, you know, that wraps up the Psycho Legacy. Check them out.
Yeah, one other thing I'd like to add also is honestly, everybody that's listened to this, thank you for listening to us blather on about this shit. I honestly hope that that you, the listener, had as much fun listening to us blab on about this as we did rewatching these movies.
Yeah, and I guess eventually we'll get to season by season of Bates Motel or something. We'll figure out how to do that later.